because in another huge move today, TNA Wrestling has fired Scott D'Amore only weeks after Stardom released a couple of their executives, or one of their executives, and the grounds of his termination was a breach of contract. I don't know what's happening, because this has happened to TNA, this has happened to Stardom. Um, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about Scott D'Amore losing that TNA president position just weeks after successfully rebranding back into TNA from Impact?
Well, sorry. Well, excuse my throat. Excuse my throat. Um, yeah. Well, I don't. I'm obviously not an avid watcher of TNA, but I just do think off of like timing that's really weird. That's a
Mm-hmm.
very weird thing because I mean TNA has. It feels like it's officially back on the map. It actually feels like it's a product that people want to tune into just as much as maybe tuning into Raw and AEW. So Raw and AEW, WWE and AEW. Oh my
Right.
god. Excuse my CTE, y'all. Um,
And my CT.
yes, yes, excuse my CTE. No, it's just they put on a somewhat decent. I actually didn't like that last pay per view, but they've been putting on a decent show, weekly shows. Apparently, they just sat there and updated the titles and all that stuff. People's happy over there. I think it's pretty odd timing that yeah, they did just kind of release this man. Did they ever explain why they got rid of him?
They never really disclosed any details. But a lot of
No.
wrestlers have been kind of showing support in his favor, so I don't think that it was
Right.
anything. Yeah.
I don't know nothing about the guy. Outside of me reading earlier today that he kind of was in favor of Ms. Blanchard, even though she kind of screwed up, and we all know what she did to La Negra Rose.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like to me when I was scrolling through off of his name trending, as Jordan put it, a lot of wrestlers seem like they were bothered and sad by it. So part of me is wondering, like, does something sketchy happen that they just randomly gave him the boot at such a odd timing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like what exactly occurred? So, oh, I'm dropping my laptop. God. Am I back?
Yeah,
Am
you're
I
good. You're
okay?
good. You're good. You're still
I was
here.
like, God damn it, I ruined the show. I'm sorry, people. If you're listening, this is a hot mess. CTE and a laptop falling. Um, no, from what I was trying to say before was that I just feel like there's going to be more information that's going to unravel about this before I could fully comment because it's kind of giving that this was like an unfair, abrupt move that happened that
Mm.
the whole entire roster is not exactly in agreement with. I don't really have an opinion on this Scott D'Amore person. I don't really know too much about him. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Jordan, because if you know anything about him, though his work, how you feel about it, any theories you have, lay it on us.
So I feel like releasing Scott D'Amore from TNA is the equivalent of releasing Triple H from WWE. We're
Mm,
talking about someone who has a lot of creative input, creative influence, someone who is very, very instrumental in the development of the infrastructure of TNA, someone who has kind of taken the product of Impact Wrestling from when it was obscure and when it wasn't in the best shape to rebranding it, refurbishing it, and repairing it so that they can attract talent and also put themselves in position to do business with multiple wrestling companies. This is a wrestling company that we talk about the Forbidden Door. This is one of the only companies that's been able to successfully work with WWE, AEW, and New Japan Pro Wrestling within the past 3 to 4 years, which says a lot about the character of the people there and just how willing they are to do business and doing cool stuff for the fans. Scott D'Amore was somebody who was well loved by a lot of the wrestlers. And in fact, I believe that Moose was the one who said if there was no Scott D'Amore in TNA, there would be no Moose in TNA. And considering that he is the current world champion, he's the current face of the brand, I think that says a lot. I do think it's a little bit suspicious though, and I think it can kind of go in, one or two ways. One, I think it's, you know, there's been suspicions of talent being poached from multiple wrestling companies. It may have something to do with that. or Anthem itself, which is the parent company of TNA, wants to put it on the Ring of Honor path. Somebody kind of pointed out online that this is kind of the first step that Ring of Honor took when right before they kind of, went super downhill, was they removed a very powerful figure who was very instrumental in the infrastructure of that company, and the next thing you know, everything fell down. And I think that, those are the two possibilities that I'm seeing right now. But once again, like you said, we need to find out more information. But Scott Demore is one of those people that he's so what he did with TNA was so remarkable that he is going to have a job by next week. Like whether it's WWE or it's AEW or it's Ring of Honor, he will be working somewhere because he has a knack for talent. He has a knack for rebuilding creative environments. And I just think that we're going to see him somewhere else. But I want to know how everybody else feels about this. How do you guys feel about Scott Demore being fired from TNA Wrestling? But we're going to move on to the next and last topic of the show.